My name is Rele Abiade. I most recently was a senior advisor to Senator Whitehouse, and I think this is day 4, as he mentioned, me owning a consulting firm. And not a textile expert, but I hang out with textiles folks, so I think I know a little bit of stuff, and just here to give the government advocacy perspective.
My name is Michael Woody. I'm the CEO of Trans-Tex LLC, textile finishing company based in Cranston, and chair, as you know, of the Rhode Island Textile Innovation Network.
And I'm Steve Perry. I'm the Vice President of Sales of Darlington Fabrics. We're a division of the Moore Company. We produce textiles in Westerly, Rhode Island. So again, a lot of what we talked about today is pretty interesting to us. We run a lot of Reprieve fiber, and we've made a lot of efforts over the years to try to be a sustainable manufacturer, but we've got a lot of work to do.
And by the way, both of these folks are on the Rhode Steering Committee as well, so they're doing double duty as well.
Well, Westerly, huh?
Westerly, Rhode Island, amazing, right? We still make fabric here.
Gotta love it. So given that we're looking at a boots-on-the-ground perspective now, I think it's good to start at Westerly, wouldn't you? I think Westerly is a good place to start. I married a girl from Westerly, by the way. But, so Steve, tell me, what do you see? What is it you encounter in terms of these sustainability issues, in terms of ecological issues? What do you see? What are you doing? Near future, maybe, a little bit.
Well, I can share with you that, you know, our brand partners, the retailers that we work with, they're very committed, right? I mean, you can debate the reasons why they're committed, but they're very committed. So we're really being pushed to continue to find more sustainable solutions, right? Whether it's reducing our waste streams, which is a super challenge, right? But we've just recently gotten to zero landfill, and it was a lot of heavy lifting. We've got to try to stay there, but it's an incredible lift to get there. We're really working hard on utilizing new chemistries to try to reduce our water consumption. That's a huge challenge for us, but we're working on it. We're also starting to run some trials with solution-dyed fibers so that we don't actually have to dye the fabric in some regards, that we can actually knit it to color to try to reduce our water. And again, I mean, it's about really putting in the work to try to achieve these goals, these lofty goals that the brands and retailers have set.
Michael, what about you? What's on the ground level for you right now?
Well, I'll look at it from 2 perspectives. The first is the product that I make, and then and sustainability as far as that goes, and then what's happening operationally. So 2 sides of that coin. And I want to start with the products we make, and it relates to what Janelle said when she brought up profits, and what Edmure said when he talked about the role of the consumer. So these lanyards that you've received today are made from Reprieve fiber. And so they're made from recycled material. And we have them available to all of our customers. And they cost about 10% more than a normal lanyard. And it's about, in terms of sales volume, about 3% of our sales volume. Now, why is that? It costs about 10% more. So consumers, someone earlier had posted a question about whether or not consumers want to buy sustainable products. Of course they're going to say they want to buy sustainable products. They'd feel badly if they didn't say that. So the key question is not whether or not they support buying or want to buy sustainable products, but how much they're willing to pay for sustainable products. And that's the challenge that I have here. I could convert my entire factory to dye sublimate and print product that's made from Reprieve fibers. And then the Department of Labor and Training in Rhode Island would be sending unemployment checks to the 85 people who work for me, because after 6 months they probably wouldn't have a job anymore. So the big role here, in my opinion, is for the consumer to say, not only vote with their, they have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And I'm not seeing that with what I sell. So that's what's, on the sales side, that's what I'm seeing. On the operational side, the biggest problem I have, and Edmure actually talked about this a little bit, my overrun material, so it's printed multicolor polyester, and this is the non-recycled material. I literally can't find anyone who will take it to turn it into another product. Can't find anybody. I'd give it to them, happily. No one will take it because there's no way for it to be reused. So we have that issue as well. I think that, so I just want to throw out rule number one from my perspective, or textile sustainability, kind of like a base rule. No textile company, in my opinion, is going to make a product that's sustainable if they can't make money doing it. And that goes back to Janelle's point about profit. So that's kind of where things stand for me. So I'm sorry, but just to add a little bit more. So it's a question of consumer pull, but there also may be an issue of push from the government side. So both of those elements are important for my company to be able to profitably manufacture from recycled material.
Which lovely segue to the government side.
He always tees it up for me. Yeah. But I just want to jump on the consumer side because we were talking earlier, and I'm starting to think about the potential equity issues down the road. I was telling him that I discovered Rothy's, and I just bought them because they're made of plastic, so they said. So I bought them, excited, but they're not that comfortable, and they're really expensive. So how do we get more people to buy into this from, consumer side if they're really expensive? So it's just something to consider because I think we all have great intentions, but we speak at consumers like you should do this, but then they go see the dollar amount. It's kind of actually jaw-dropping when I think about what they cost. But on the government side, I think my pitch is you could continue to do small things and good things for PR, or you could really jump in like he is. Either way, government's going to come in with some ideas. And as I always talk to Michael about, they may not come to you for your opinion. So I think the best thing is to do exactly what Darlington's doing. They're moving ahead, but I hope that you guys are pitching this to the delegation, letting them know all the time what they're doing, because when they go back to DC, they can let folks know that there's a company in Rhode Island that's sort of leading the way. My concern is that sometimes industry waits until the last second, and a lot of times there's a bill that has no potential, there's a larger vehicle, there's excitement at 2 a.m., and it gets into a larger bill, and there won't be time for the textiles industry to really say much. So I guess it's just to be aware. There are folks like Michael, who we call the godfather of the textiles industry for Rhode Island. Make sure folks like him have your backing and your support so that when he's down in DC, he's advocating appropriately for stakeholders here.
So from your point of view, we're not going. Let's say we don't wait for the bills to go through. We don't wait for those things. What do you see as one good step that we in here might make following this event today?
I know exactly. All these presentations I heard today, there were a lot of things we could do as a state. So if you think about it, Governor Hochul in New York, I think she created a $10 million textile sustainability initiative. That's going to make a difference one day. If California does that next, guess what? Somebody in Congress is going to say, I want to scale this out nationally. So in my opinion, we're so small. I spent 3 hours at a Girl Scout meeting yesterday. Why don't we go get the Girl Scouts or use younger people, the next generation, use them as part of, it's PR a little bit, to be honest, but it's thinking strategically about how could we get different generations to get interested in this and then pitch that, scale it out. And I know it sounds kind of corny, but I hate to say it, a lot of these things start really small on the state side. So that's my suggestion. And I made that up as I was sitting here, so great presentations.
Well, great suggestion. So now we go through to the K through 12. But before I open up to questions, I have a quick question for you, Steve, and one for you, Michael. Steve, you mentioned the zero landfill. I think that's very impressive. What was the hardest thing about that, and what advice would you give companies wishing to do the same?
So the hardest part is what Michael just referenced, right, which is the waste. And we finally had to get the solution of waste to energy. When you finally can't find a market for your fabric, it's got to go waste to energy. But it's not easy because they need it in a certain format. So we actually have to expend money to actually make our fabric allowable to waste to energy, so that we have to actually chop it up to be able to actually then give it away for it to be able to go not into the landfill. But that was our biggest challenge. It's going to continue to be a challenge for us. But
how did you make that economically viable?
you have to bear the cost. I mean, it's
Government incentive.
yeah.
That's what
we would love that.
Yeah,
There one does not exist that we're aware of today, but that's exactly what we would love.
Delegation and ask for one.
And we're not good at this. So I think from our standpoint, and Michael knows this, and this is what Wrighton helps us do, but we're not good at asking, right? And we're good at doing, but we're not necessarily good at telling the story. So that's where we need some help.
And I think, Rele, that's an excellent point. To Steve's thought, if we are going to retool our factories operationally to come up with new ways to become sustainable on the operational side, a little help from the government would be nice. I mean, people are getting incentives to buy electric vehicles. That's great. But how about some help on the factory floor? Give us a little help so that I can find a way to do what Steve's doing, because frankly, I can't afford to do that right now. I'm competing with Chinese companies that are sending stuff in here and they're paying people $1 an hour. So we need that kind of help if we're going to be as effective at being operationally sustainable. And I think that's the same for most textile companies. I mean, Steve said it's a cost center for him. Being operationally sustainable is a cost center.
So my question for you, Michael, and it actually is a question for all three of you, and then we'll open up here, but you sort of started to alluding to, and this is a conversation you and I have actually had, you started alluding to the culture change that's necessary. We have to get to the point where the consumer not only is open to this, but wants it. In my classroom, I talk about and I mentioned that from the podium earlier, the smoking, non-smoking problem, right? How do we do that?
Well, I think that's the educational component. I think an institution like URI has a big role in that. And what Rele talked about, down on the ground, right down to children, teaching them about the importance of sustainability. I know Steve talked about the commitment of big box retailers, and Edmure referred to that. I'm skeptical about it, frankly, because it doesn't fit their business model. So unless consumers say, yeah, we're buying sustainable, you know, Target can say they want 100% recyclable polyester in their stores by 2025. Fact is, from what Janelle said, if I understand correctly, that's not possible because it's not possible to make that many products. So it's kind of, to me, it's a bit of a hollow claim until I see it actually happen in terms of how they buy. I'd like to see them really do that. But in terms of, to answer your question fully, I think that it's important that it's going to be an educational effort. And I think there's a role for universities in that. I think there's a role for government in that as well.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, so big box retail is a huge challenge. I mean, we're in the niche retail market where we've seen some buy-in. But no, you're absolutely right. It starts with the consumer. If the consumer demands it, it will happen. And I think we have to educate our consumers. There's no doubt.
We had this conversation earlier, really. I'm sorry, but about, you mentioned the shoes. If you're a family of limited means, you can't afford to spend more money for sustainable clothing. It may last longer, but you're working week to week on a paycheck. So, maybe your heart is in, I want to buy, a $30 t-shirt for my kid that's going to last 5 years, but one, my kid keeps growing, so won't last for 5 years to begin with, and two, I don't have the money to do it.
It's exactly what I was going to say. So we just need to rethink things. Also, let's think, and this wasn't my idea, somebody said it to us outside, 5Ks use thousands of T-shirts every year just in Rhode Island. I mean, they stop traffic, that's one thing, but they also, everybody has a different colored T-shirt. Instead of T-shirts for every 5K, what about we talk to organizers about doing the recyclable lanyards or something? So the $200 Rothies, I just don't think are realistic. But I think if we focus on other ways everybody can be involved that don't cost money, I think that would be helpful.
All right, we have a little bit of time for questions from the floor. Yes, over here.
Hi, Wendy Mackey. Whoa. I hear things. I'm listening to this whole day of the presentations, and all I hear is advocacy and partnership, advocacy and partnership. This isn't something that the textile industry needs to do, just the textile. For the last 15 years, I've worked in the marine industry, and Rele will tell you, since like 2009, we've been trying to figure out how to recycle fiberglass boats. We are we've established the model and how to get it done, but it is so expensive. So what we did was we advocated. Senator Whitehouse's office actually really helped us to gain attention at the federal level, and we did get some mentioning in legislation, and we're now writing a grant application and have gotten funding from NOAA, but it's so much more than that. And so listening to your presentation, Janelle, I was blown away. I really want to talk to you about how we partner, how we think about aligning, and then making a bigger noise in DC by advocacy. So no question.
No question, but a comment. But would anyone
Great comment,
would
though.
anyone like to respond?
Great comment. Yeah, that was easy for us. Thank you, Wendy.
Question, though. Question over here.
All right. Love the fact that you guys are mentioning about consumers, and love the fact that you are holding them accountable. That's literally what I tell my students. It's not just corporate social responsibility. That C also stands for consumer social responsibility. So I love the fact. What I wanted to know is the way I suggest one possible solution to that is mean for advocacy is that, for example, tell consumers the cost per wear. So when we are talking about those big budget items, they might see that, but let's get inspired by Walmart pricing strategy, or rather Walmart labeling strategy. They says like, if you buy 3, or this is the price per unit, price per pound, and they break that down. Can we take similar inspiration and says like, okay, so you're buying $200 Rothy, but that might last you for 5 years and give you around, let's say, 5,000 wear. This is the price that you are paying per wear. Why not kind of like take similar approach?
I think that's a great idea, but I also think it's a great idea to put Made in USA on a label, and people don't pay attention to that either. So I'm not denigrating your question. I think it's an excellent point, and I think it's an excellent marketing move. But I hear people complain all the time about imports, but they don't look at the label to see where the product they buy is made. So I think, should we do it? Yes, absolutely. I think that's a very good marketing point.
And I think we should do it for I think it was like the company says 6 bottles. It took whatever many bottles to make this. I think for some consumers, probably higher income, that would make a big difference. Maybe that's where you start. So I like the idea, but obviously understand Michael's point of view.
All right, we have time for one more, maybe 2 more if they're brief. Here in the back, okay.
Hi, I just had a question. So I make clothing and like stuffed animals and a bunch of textile art. And I was just looking for some businesses around Rhode Island that I could get in contact with to have a mainly sustainable business. So I'm trying to find thread and fabric that's all sustainable. I've been doing a lot of like upcycling and stuff like that, but I would like to get in contact with more people that are into like making, like you guys were saying, like the fibers and everything like that that's already been recycled, and then I can continue to recycle.
Sure. But no, we'd be happy to talk to you. I mean, certainly, I mean, we've got materials that are made out of recycled products, and we're always happy to help local manufacturers. So please, we'll come over to our table, we'll give you our contact information.
I think this will be our final question of the day.
It's kind of a loaded question. I'm glad you talked about water consumption in the plant. Consumers also use a lot of water, probably washing their clothes more than they have to. We have rising sea levels, and we're running out of water in California. So what is happening with desalination? Because that could solve a couple problems.
Good question. You know, again, I mean, we don't hear much at all about desalination as an opportunity, so I wouldn't be able to take that one on. But I mean, water is at top of mind for us because we do, as an industry, use a ridiculous amount of water. But desalination necessarily isn't a topic that we've broached.
Same here. Nothing. Well, I think, Mrs. Parlange, did you have a question?
So as a consumer, I buy clothing, and then when it's used, when I don't want it anymore, I'll donate it to Goodwill or Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or whatever. It's kind of a stupid question, but someone once told me there's no such thing as a stupid question. So a lot of times I'll cut the label out because it's uncomfortable. When a piece of clothing is recycled from Goodwill or whatever, is that label needed to know the fiber content of the piece of clothing?
Janelle, I have no idea. Janelle, do you know?
I mean, the answer is yes and no. I mean, honestly, the tonnage that's flowing through on conveyor belts, nobody has time to look at every label and find it. Okay, so this is where there are some interesting new developments in digital tracing, in blockchain, in platforms where that information is hopefully stored, but how that information is going to find its way and connect its own dots from, you know, you're cutting out the label to a recycling facility. There's so many steps, as you see, so don't feel bad.
I would just like to say that the answers to these problems, these issues, they begin with forums like this. Right. They begin with these types of collaborations and the trading of ideas. So just wanted to be clear about that. Happy to see all you folks out there.